Andy, I only have one question this morning. I probably asked this question a little while ago too. Actually, I know I did ask this question.
Oh,
Are we finally at the point where Andy Jabor is the next Speaker of the House? Is this possible?
I mean, that's one office I am eligible for, Dave. As an imported American, I'm still allowed to be speaker. So as they can't seem to figure out what the hell they're doing, listen, Dave, I'm willing to stand up. I'm willing to serve.
Well, I think they need somebody willing to stand up and willing to serve. Because I guess, Andy, in the Republican Party these days, is if you work bipartisan in any way, shape, or form, you're immediately cause for I don't even know what the word is anymore, but your position is in jeopardy. So, Speaker Johnson, who has had his own tumultuous time, anyways, about rejecting border bills and all this other stuff, he worked bipartisanly to keep the government open. Heaven forbid the government
Yeah,
stays open, pays
disgusting.
all this other stuff. So now the senator, or not senator, God forbid, the representative from Georgia, Marjorie Taylor Greene, her of space lasers and the Jews, and her of other wild conspiracies, and her of sitting in the State of the Union booing or wearing Donald Trump paraphernalia. Um, that's the same one. She is now calling for a review and I guess a revote of whether he should stay in office in his position. He just got to this position. I don't even know how long ago it was, Andy. Six
Yeah, couple
six
months,
months.
Dave. Couple months.
Yeah, I mean this is the Republican Party. They don't want to govern, Andy.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Don't want you. I don't think it's even a matter of don't want to, 'cause I think there are some that do. I think it's the fact that they cannot. They cannot
Oh,
govern. They have
yeah.
a they don't have a strong majority. They have a completely divided party, and there's a small wing of the party that agree with them or don't agree with them, and I don't, but agree with them and are holding the rest of the party and therefore at times the nation hostage for extremist politics. Right. The whole point of Congress is to compromise. Like that's the whole thing that it's supposed to do in order to run efficiently, represent the interests of the American people, to come to consensus that's agreeable to the most American people, and put legislation in that moves our government forward while keeping the government open. Right. And Dave, I'm no fan of government. I like smaller government, but a fundamental like responsibility of the Congress and the president is keep things running without disruption, to the American way of life. Just keep the doors open, plan a budget, fund it, and move forward, right? And they're incapable of doing that. They don't properly plan a budget. When they do spend money, they spend way too much. And then when they elect speakers right now, listen, Dave, on this show, you've heard me complain about Nancy Pelosi. I was no Nancy Pelosi fan. I'm no fan of people staying in office or position for decades upon decades. But for the love of God, there was some stability when Nancy Pelosi was Speaker of the House, and all there has been since Republicans took over is absolute chaos. It's just a mess. I shared a post with you that I threw up there on Friday after Marjorie Taylor Greene, the cartoon character of a human that she is, right? The media obsessed, attention, seeking character that she is calling for Johnson's, removal. If you can't even manage your own party reasonably and responsibly, like you cannot be expected to govern, the United States of America. You can't be expected to run the Congress. And the Republicans have demonstrated they can't. And I'm telling you, Dave, if they have another meltdown and throw Johnson out and have another disaster electing the speaker, they may as well raise a white flag in November because Americans are going to look at them and say, look, this party is dysfunctional and I can't support them. And the Democrats will win and they'll win the House back. And look, at this point, whether I agree with Democrats or not, they could run Congress. They put their house in order. And I think Mr. Hakeem Jeffries, I think, would do a better job, right, just being stable and sane than what we're seeing in Congress today. And that doesn't say a lot for the Republican Party.
Yeah, I mean, I think that last point is the one I was going to focus in on, Andy. I mean, this will be the third speaker, and not to mention when Johnson got in, it was already like a nightmare of it wasn't like he was a slam dunk. And so you're looking at 2 years worth of just chaos, utter chaos,
Yeah.
and clearly not in the best interest of the American people because you're talking about shutting down the government, not doing the border security bill, not doing foreign aid. Frankly, Andy, this is yeah, they have a one person majority, Andy. I mean, it's not like they have a overwhelming majority where they could lose a couple seats and still I mean, this is just one or two things. And oh, by the way, Margaret Taylor Greene and some of her cohorts, I mean, uh,
Band of
what
brothers. Band of brothers, Dave.
is that what they're calling
No,
themselves?
no, no.
No, I was gonna say the because we had the squad on the other side,
Yeah.
and for AOC, she was a lightning rod when she came in, but the
Yeah.
Democrats pretty much put her in the corner and said, "Hey, look, stop doing derailing all this stuff. Your squad is no longer a squad, except for if you're an extremist on the right, where you want to try to focus on anti-American or unpatriotic people." Unpatriotic is not doing what we need to do as a country here, Andy, and supporting the people you were voted to do. So I'll tell you. Anyways, that's a nice intro. I mean, we also see a lot of candidates nowadays, Andy, that are trying to get away from their parties and maybe considering independent runs.
Yeah.
You saw not that he was welcomed by the party. The George Santos is considering an independence run. Bob Menendez on the Democratic side, he's considering an independent run. A couple other senators and other politicians are considering whether they should stay with their parties. The time is right for a third party to step up here, but again, I think we're all chicken, and they say it, but then they back away from it because they realize it might be a little harder work than they think. I don't know, Andy.
Yeah, well, I mean, what you're seeing too, I think you're seeing the issue of these folks get to Congress and they never want to leave, right?
Yeah,
Because there's a lot of shady business that goes on in those halls, Dave. I mean, from one, the whole ethical responsibility of Congress. We seem to be struggling to maintain internal ethical oversight over our actions and behaviors, right? Just like we can't actually get term limits on the floor of the House, right? It gets put into committee, it dies in committee, it never sees a light of day. Just like we have congressmen who don't have insider trading uh, issues the way that government representatives who have insider information do, right? So government representatives, or I'm sorry, like a bureaucrat working for our federal departments and agencies can't have certain conflicts of interest buying stocks. Congress people, they have insider information, intelligence, buying and selling stocks how they want, making a lot of money while they're in Congress and getting a lot of attention. Some of these people come out of Congress way more rich than they were going into Congress, and they can't leave. They don't want to leave. It's a comfortable lifestyle. And so you've got George Santos, you've got Bob Menendez, you've got other clowns, including some that are in office, right now and very loud in Congress, who dominate the scene, don't want to leave, making a lot of money, really ruining the standards and role and responsibility of Congress. It's disgusting, and I hope we can find a way to get rid of them. The problem is the same ones responsible for making the rules and the procedures to open things up, to create more competition in Congress, to provide proper ethical oversight in Congress, are the ones that are the problem. And so we're not seeing anything positive happen. It's going to lead to some issues down the road, David. I think there's going to be a point where the American people say enough is enough. I hope we're getting there.
yeah, I hope so too, Andy. Like, I could only hope. Okay, we spent way too much
Way
time
too
on
much.
this thing as we should have, Andy, but it was worthy of noting. I guess we'll see. I guess they're on recess right now, so in a couple weeks they'll be back, and I wish we could all take a recess from this Congress because
And
they need
recess is the right word. Yeah, I agree with you. But recess is a good. It's a schoolyard Congress. It's an elementary school Congress. Recess is the right word. They're on recess. They need a timeout. This is where we are today, Dave. It's pretty sad.
Yeah, it is quite sad. Okay, Andy, let's do a quick sports check-in here,
Good.
only because the NCAA tournament is still going on. It was a fun weekend. I enjoyed the 4 days worth of games. I actually watched more college basketball this weekend than I did the whole season. And I was thinking about that for a little bit. Now, let's just give everybody a quick update first. In our competition here, our Gate 15 March Madness poll. You are leading the way, Andy, after the first week.
Numero uno.
I am in third place, so it is what it is. But I watched a lot more this weekend, but I was thinking years ago I used to watch it because the teams had like familiarity. Like you knew who the best players in the country were. You
Yeah,
knew who the best teams were because you knew the players on the team were there for 2 or 3 years. Like in college football, they have their own problems right now with people playing the season and then skipping out of the bowl games and all that other stuff. But at least they're there for 3 years. You have to stay in college, or you can't go to the NFL until you're 3 years out of high school. And so that's one rule where you at least know the players for a couple years. In college basketball, a lot of the elite programs now have these one and done players because you can go to the NBA after 1 year, and it doesn't build you don't build that hatred for a player like you did before. Like all those Duke teams from before, Christian Laettner,
yeah,
Bob Hurley,
yeah,
all those guys, Cherokee Parks, all those guys JJ Redick, you hated because they had played there for 3 or 4 years. Now you look at the Duke team and they're very skilled, right? I mean, they're a good Duke team, but half their starters are going to be gone next year.
yeah.
Good the NBA, and you're not going to know them. And so it doesn't lead to that consistency. Now you look at a team like Purdue, who's going to be one of the top draft picks this year. He's been there for quite some time. He came back to school when he could have gone to the draft, but I that's where I lose my interest during the year. But it's still exciting to see these games where 5 versus 12, you still get those upsets, and
Yeah.
you still have those fun buzzer beaters, or at least some down to the wire games. What did you think on the games, Andy? How much did you watch?
Yeah, I didn't really watch the games, but I monitored them. Checking the scores and seeing who was doing what. And Duke, you mentioned already. And look, regardless who's on that team, they're fun to hate. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And so, I get to hate them again. Not that I'm a big James Madison University fan, but they are a Virginia school who was sort of an upstart making the tournament. Doing some pretty exciting things in sports. And of course, Duke came along and beat them. Not unlike Duke beat George Mason many years ago, and was the subject of my wrath for decades upon decades. So I'm happy to always hate Duke. But one thing is I think pretty remarkable. North Carolina is kind of killing it right now, right? I mean, Duke's still in.
yeah.
UNC obviously still in. North Carolina State making a little bit of a push here. So pretty exciting for the state of North Carolina. I mean, always known for great basketball. Team after team, and NC State's no one to forget about. I mean, they pop in with some competition every now and again. But exciting to see, and it's fun to see where the tournament is. And there's some good games ahead here. I mean, as we get closer to the final 2 rounds or so, 3 rounds or so, it's pretty exciting basketball. And I don't know if there's a huge Cinderella story going right now, really, but it's still fun to watch the players go. And the for me, I never got too into college sports in general, so like I was never too hung up on the players. But you're right. I mean, you mentioned some of those old Duke players, right? Bobby Hurley and Christian Laettner, and why you could appreciate them as players. Like it was just fun to hate those rival schools and players, and you don't have that in the same way now, I don't think, because there's so much transition. Not unlike pro sports, right? I mean, the NFL too. You hated a team and they had the same players year after year. Now, you hate the team, but free agency comes and guys are gone after a year or two. Unless you're an exceptional, Patrick Mahomes or somebody that's sitting on that team forever, just don't see it as much anymore. Unless these guys sign these long contracts. So it's college. It's also pros to some extent.
Yeah, it is. It's challenging. You kind of bring up an interesting point with North Carolina and North Carolina State, and then Duke. It's very contrast. Like North Carolina for the last couple of years has been really good. Um, it, and mostly because they have had players stay for 3, 4 years. You
Yeah,
look at Duke's roster; they're starting five. I mean, they have one senior, but they have three sophomores and a freshman, and that freshman's probably going to be gone or try the NBA draft. The other ones are going to be probably try to go, and I just don't think that Duke has been as competitive as UNC has been lately, and I just wonder if we lose something with some of that. Now, I'm not here to begrudge anybody if they think they're ready to go to the NBA and play. I just think you lose something in college
yeah,
when you're only going there for 1 year. What's even the point, right? I know you have to do your minimal grades and stuff, but are they really going to classes to study? Or are they, why not? This gets back to this age-old debate: is like, should college athletics be separate from the college? I mean, and really not even be, because in Europe, they don't have college sports. I mean, you go to
Yeah.
college to go to college. You have, a different tiered approach over there. This is like college athletics the way it is. It's big money because
Yeah.
you
Big
know,
money.
it is big money. So it's an interesting time. Okay, Andy, another thing that's come up on the sports watch, Andy, and I know you're not a huge baseball fan, but it is involving betting,
Oh yeah.
which is something else that we've talked about in the past. Shohei Ohtani, the arguably the best player in the Major League Baseball. Maybe even some people are even saying he's one of the best players to ever play because he's such a dominant pitcher and is such a dominant hitter that this type of person hasn't been seen since Babe Ruth. And so he's already been gotten accolades. He's the richest baseball player in the world, has signed a 700 million dollar contract to play with the Dodgers this year. And now it's coming out a story about his interpreter, who's very close friend of his, in addition to being his interpreter, was paying off over $4 million worth of betting. I guess I wouldn't say fees, but losses,
Yeah.
writing off losses. Now the problem is the interpreter doesn't make a whole lot of money, and he's run up $4.5 million in losses. There has to be, like, what type of betting book would ever allow somebody who makes under $100,000 a year to have that much of a run up unless they knew somebody could pay the bills for them.
Yeah.
Um, or unless that person was taking the fall for Ohtani actually placing the bets. And as you aware, the sports leagues have anti-betting policies. You can't do betting um, if you're playing it. Especially you can't bet on your own sport. That would be the big no-no. See Pete Rose if anybody has any questions. But this is just getting started, Andy. Very interesting thing. I'm torn with it because betting has become normalized. I mean, pro
Yeah.
sports are embracing betting. They want you to bet on the games. FanDuel and DraftKings and all
Yep.
these other sites
Yep.
are out there. North Carolina just legalized sports betting, and yet the players can't partake in any of that. Um, I don't know. I know there's always the price shaving or the point shaving scandals that you can think about, but what are your thoughts on this Otani story in the very early stages, Andy?
Yeah, well, the story specifically, there's going to be an investigation. They're going to try and dig into what really was happening here or not. But I think, on the broader topic of betting, one, I said before, right? Like I don't gamble, but I'm all for people having the right to gamble. Like if that's your thing, if it gets you excited, gets you to watch the game or just paid, like that's fine. If that's what gets you off, go for it. But the rules are broken, right? We saw this with the NFL. Back to my favorite team, the Detroit Lions. Young Jamison Williams, even though they were briefed on the rules, the owners and coaches have made it an emphasis to brief players on the rules. Like the kid was on the team facility, right, in his car, in the parking lot, betting on not NFL games, right, on a sports app. And he got a 6 game suspension for it, right? And he was like, hey, I didn't realize that was against the rules because, like, he wasn't doing anything unethical, right? And so the NFL has since come in and refined the rules saying, hey, this was kind of stupid, and they reduced his punishment and they changed the rules. But, like, just like Congress, right? When there's an issue we want to address it specifically, with as limited restrictions as possible, and make sure that it's precise in doing what you want it to do. Congress sucks at that, and our sports leagues sometimes suck at that. Like if there's not a direct conflict of interest, right? If you're not betting in a way that's going to influence your performance in the game, right? It's going to cause some kind of ethical violation, conflict of interest, like bet away. Like if you have no influence on the outcome, if you want to bet, hundreds of millions of dollars, bet away. Go nuts, have fun, live and die with the consequences. Like that's fine. That's fine. So we have these rules in place that are sometimes clunky and unreasonable and go beyond serving the effective purpose. and it's just restricting people in an environment today where, like you said, sports betting has become normalized. If regular people can do it, athletes should be able to do it too, as long as it doesn't influence their performance or anything they can directly influence. I mean, obviously there's conflicts of interest that have to be managed there, but I think it's time to really just look at these things and make sure that we're doing it the right way, as opposed to just putting rules in place to either protect our industry and organization, or just like kind of large blanket rules that really serve no effective purpose. So the investigation will play itself out. Hopefully, there's nothing unethical on the player's part here, but sometimes people, whether it's a player or his friend and interpreter, they get ahead of themselves. They get involved in things they shouldn't. And if there were bad choices made, there's going to be consequences to be paid. That's life.
Well, the the obvious concern, like I was mentioning earlier, is the point shaving type of
Yeah,
thing, throwing games and such, the Black Sox scandal and all this other stuff. But here's the reality: is like this isn't where the mob is running all the sports books anymore. I mean, we've legalized gambling on so many fronts. And oh, by the way, you mentioned it earlier, Congress can do insider trading all they want, and
all they want.
nobody gives a nobody's putting rules against them, and yet a baseball player can't bet on football when everybody else in the world has done that. And everyone would say, well, that's too bad, that's the price of paying professional sports. Well, look, I mean, we've got to really look at I mean, can owners bet on sports? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. My guess is that they probably are and should can, but it's the same old age old question, I guess, on that front. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see this play out over the next several weeks. Major
Yeah.
League Baseball's opened an investigation. I think the federal government's involved in a little bit, though I'm not sure what they're going to be investigating, to be honest. So we'll just start from there. Okay, Andy, another. Anything else on that before I transition in our waning segment here, Andy?
Let's move, Dave. Let's move.
Okay, Andy, you put we were talking TV a lot last week, Andy, and you are wearing, tell everybody what you're wearing today, Andy.
Can you hear the theme song? Dun 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 dun. Dun. It's my Voltron shirt. I thought I had Voltron shirt in my wardrobe, and I came to realize that I didn't. And so after our conversation, I felt compelled to order two Voltron shirts. So I'll let you enjoy this fine one today. The other one, I'm sure, in the weeks ahead. And so yeah, I'm wearing my Voltron shirt today, Dave. Very proud of my Lions, specifically the Lions version of Voltron. They were awesome. They're still awesome. Proud to represent the Lions colors and the team on the shirt today. If you're not watching on Spotify, it's a beautiful mix of the Lions colors, the green, the blue, the red, the yellow, of course the black lion, because all form the head. And Dave, it's great. So
Yeah,
glad to
no,
work. Glad to work.
that's a good show. Reminisce back to our discussion last week on cartoons. Andy, this is going to be another. I talked to you about. I'm watching Shogun. My wife and I are watching that. It's quite good.
Yeah.
Enjoy it. I highly encourage it. I'm also watching the Manhunt about John Wilkes Booth and the
Oh yeah.
assassination of Kennedy, of not Kennedy, of Lincoln. That's interesting. I haven't watched much more of that, but I do need to catch up a little bit. But you brought up a show that's come out on Netflix, um, Three Body Problem.
Yeah.
And so I watched the first episode last night. Have you watched any of this, Andy?
Dave, we're about, I think we just finished episode 6 last
Oh
night.
my, okay, all right, all
Yeah.
right. What are your thoughts, Andy? Yeah, clearly you like it, right?
Oh, yeah, we're digging it. We're digging it. I mean, I hadn't planned on watching. I didn't really know much about it. My wife had seen it on Netflix a little bit and kind of skipped over it. And I was seeing more and more about it and just like rave reviews. And so I mentioned like, hey, you want to just check it out while you're sitting on the couch? I think on Friday, we started watching it and we were like, that's pretty cool. I think it's a lot of fun. It's kind of crazy. Good acting. I think good effects. Good visually, and kind of a crazy storyline. So I mean, hey, look, you got Benedict Wong in there with a British accent being awesome, and then just a
Yeah.
host of other young actors performing. I think really really well. A lot of familiar faces. I think a lot of faces people recognize from one movie or another. I think it's really well done, Dave. I'm enjoying it. So how about you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean I enjoy the first episode left me like intrigued. I'm
Yeah.
not sure how I still feel about it. I'm like, this looks it could go off the rails for me pretty soon, or it could continue to
Stays on the
engage.
rails. It stays on the rails, Dave. You'll enjoy
Stays
it.
on the rails. Okay. All right. Well, I'll have to keep watching it because I did find it like the first episode very interesting, right? They leave you with a lot of suspense. Why are these people killing themselves? What are these things that they're seeing and why are they pulling out their eyeballs and so on. And then, this it leaves you that first episode with somewhat of a like a oh my, what's this countdown meaning to and where's it leading to and what is this thing they put in this VR type of machine they're putting on their head. So very, very interesting, and I'll definitely keep watching it. So we'll have to pull up. I think it's only eight episodes. Is the
Yeah,
whole
eight
thing?
episodes in season one. I think it's. I want to say it's scheduled for 3 seasons. I might be wrong about that. Maybe it was 3 books. I don't know. Or maybe I was getting stuck on
Okay.
a three-body problem. Either way, it's intended to be a multiple season show. 8 episodes in this first season, and I think pretty universally positive reviews on it, Dave. I really think you're going to enjoy it. If somebody hasn't checked it out, I think you'll find some good entertainment there on Netflix, which I think is, doing really well. Doing some really good shows coming out on Netflix right now.
Yeah. So here's a question, Andy. Though, like you're 6 episodes in. I'm only one.
Yeah.
We can't really talk about it because you know much more than I do.
Yeah.
Do you prefer the binge or the week over week?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I prefer having the option to
Y-
binge, right? Because if you're sitting there watching it and like, it's a Friday night or Saturday night and you've got a little time and you're chilling, like if you want to take in a couple of, I like the fact you've got the option to do that. You can just crush it if you want to, or if you want to just, pace yourself, be a good self-disciplined individual and do, one a night, one a week, whatever you want. Yeah, I like you don't have to wait. That you're not at the mercy of the channel, slowly teasing these out over time. I like I can just crush it if you want to crush it. So, but I mean, they both their merits. They're both fine. But like with all things, Dave, I like control.
You like Yeah, I prefer almost like the week over week just because too much at one time, then somebody can finish it and so like you can finish yours tomorrow if you wanted to and or tonight and I'd be like but the Shogun's a week over week. Alpha does an interesting thing with theirs. They release like the first three at one time and then it's week over week from
Based.
there and they pace you out. But and then HBO famously does, once a week type of thing. They don't
Yeah.
binge. But House of Dragon is coming up, Andy.
Yeah.
The Acolyte is coming up. We have a lot of really good TV that, I thought TV might have been dropping off, but we've got some pretty decent shows out there right now.
Yeah, there's a lot, and across the different channels. Although I think there's a good conversation to have about Netflix, but I think also one thing I've got my eye, I haven't had a chance to watch it because I have to negotiate watching with my wife here, right? We have to agree to what we're going to see, but trying to nudge her to put on X-Men '97 on Disney.
Oh, yeah.
So I'd like to check that out myself. So yeah, so there's a lot of good viewing. We have limited TV time, but at the end of the day, once everything's said and done, it's nice to dial out for an hour and drink our tea and watch a good show. And there's a lot, out and coming out of the months ahead. So looking forward
So
to it.
you clearly watched X-Men growing up, right? The cartoon then.
Yeah, various variations, of course, the movies, and of course, I love the Uncanny X-Men comics were the best.
Okay, so I did watch X-Men 97. I watched X-Men 97. I started it. And it is a straight you might as well have been like it picks up the same music, the
Yeah,
same opening, the same it's not like the best comic,
yeah,
necessarily. It is 1997 and it does take you back. So I recommend I'm not probably gonna be watching it like all the time, but it is something I could probably throw on and be like, hey, I'll watch one. Hey, 30-minute episodes, I can dig that, right?
yeah, yeah.
So, all right, Andy, that's a lot of packed in here on a Monday. We only scratched the surface because there was a couple other stories I want to get into. We'll save those for Wednesday, I think, Andy. But some interesting stuff ahead. So,
Something to look forward to. Nice to you, Dave. Can I just say two things real quick? Can I just go a
yeah.
little. So one, we're recording this on Monday the 25th. Yesterday, Sunday the 24th. The famous 80s movie The Breakfast Club celebrates 40 years yesterday, and so a lot of folks watch The Breakfast Club. I think it's one of the best movies that came out of the 80s. great cast, right? Great fun in that movie. Classic high school movie. 40 years old. That's hard to
That's
believe. So
crazy.
I think one of my favorite accounts on Threads is Land of the 80s. Just constant content, letting you reminisce on some of the best things we grew up with. And then, the music scene, a lot of great music came out Friday. One really fun one was Gary Clark Jr., who I think does a great job with some new rock and roll, teaming up with Stevie Wonder, who still sounds like Stevie Wonder, which is amazing. It was with a really fun song, really thoughtful song. What about the children? It's really well done. Good song to check out if folks are looking for something new to listen to. Good meaning, good sound. Good combo there with Gary Clark Jr. and Stevie Wonder. Might be worth checking out. And the new Pearl Jam is pretty awesome too, by the way.
Andy, I'll just say that's thanks for the music plug because this is a special week for me. This is Easter week, right? So this
Yeah.
is a lot of good, the Holy Week on a lot of fronts, right? There's a lot of things that go on. I always pull out Jesus Christ Superstar, the
Oh
musical.
yeah.
I love the musical. I went last October. My wife and I went in October when I was in Charlotte. And I always pull it out because obviously it's the lead up to the crucifixion
Yeah.
and such. But it's quite good, and so I always use this time of year to pull that out. I like the John Legend version. They did a TV broadcast of it. He did a great job at playing Jesus, and there's so many different. It's good music. So if you
It
haven't
is.
listened to Jesus Christ Superstar, please ringing endorsement here.
My mom had one of the tapes, Andrew Lloyd Webber's original score, like growing up with, and on the tape rack that she had when I was growing up, and it is just it's good music, it's fun music, and you're right, it kind of
Yeah,
it's nice at this time of the year, especially to sort of pause and appreciate that. We're gonna have our first Easter without our kids home this year, and
that's
so my
crazy.
wife and I are a little bit, confused by even what that means for us. So
Yeah, it is different, right? I mean, our oldest is not going to be home this year either. This is the first year for him not being here, so it'll be it's tough. Yeah, it is definitely tough. So, all right, Andy, a lot to get through still this week, and so I will look forward to catching up with you next time, Andy.